I think white people are so triggered by black joy because they have zero control over it. And white people are all about control. And anything they don't get to control and manage and dictate freaks them the hell out.
They don't get to be the leader.
White rage is not about visible violence, but white rage is subtle. It is corrosive. It operates through the state legislatures, through Congress, through the judiciary, through school boards. It cloaks itself in legalities. Because it's so quiet, it's so subtle, you don't see. And so I set out to blow graphite onto that fingerprint, to be able to trace white rage throughout time to 2016. And one of the things that became clear to me as I started thinking through how white rage works, it became clear to me that the presence of black people was not the trigger for white rage. It is the presence of black people with ambition. The presence of black people with drive. The presence of black people with aspirations. The presence of black people who achieve. It's the presence of black people who refuse to accept their subjugation. The presence of black people who demand their rights. That's the trigger for white rage. And this society has therefore punished black resilience and black resolve.
True. Not one black person alive today was enslaved in America. That is true. Black people are wanting free stuff. Okay, I don't know. I want free stuff, so I guess white people want free stuff too. Reparations isn't about someone who had been enslaved and now is not enslaved. We had a chance to do that, and we blew it back in the 1880s and 90s.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. White fear is rising, not because black people are struggling, but because black people are finally figuring life out, and that scares them more than anything else. Guys, let's watch the clip. Remember, the credit goes to the direct owner of the video. I'll be back in a few minutes.
Have you ever wondered if the well-intentioned feeling of white guilt might actually be doing more harm than good? White guilt refers to the feeling of shame or responsibility that some white individuals experience as a result of their perceived role in historical and ongoing racial injustices. This guilt can manifest in a variety of ways, including apologizing for one's whiteness, engaging in performative allyship, or avoiding conversations about race altogether. While the intentions behind white guilt may be well-meaning, it can actually be harmful. First and foremost, it can be patronizing and disempowering to black people. It reinforces the idea that people of color are victims who need saving rather than agents of their own liberation. It also focuses on the idea that white people commit individual acts of racism rather than acknowledging that racism is a systemic issue that all of us need to work to dismantle. White guilt can be paralyzing. Rather than taking concrete actions to address racial inequality, individuals who feel guilt may become overwhelmed and feel as though there is nothing that they can do to make a difference. This can result in a sense of hopelessness and lack of meaningful progress. So, what can we do instead? First and foremost, we need to recognize that feeling guilty about whiteness does not actually solve any problems. Instead, we need to take concrete actions to address systemic racism. This might involve educating ourselves about the history of racism and its ongoing implications, supporting organizations that work to promote racial equity, or having difficult conversations with our friends and family members about race. We also need to be mindful that the ways in which our guilt may inadvertently perpetuate racism. For example, if we are constantly apologizing for our privilege or center conversations around our own feelings of guilt, we are still making the conversation about ourselves rather than about the experiences and needs of Black people. We need to shut up, listen, and learn to the experiences of people of color without dismissing their experiences. While it's important to acknowledge the ways in which our privilege has contributed to systemic racism, we need to be careful not to let that guilt consume us. Instead, we should channel our energy into meaningful conversations and actions that will contribute to a more equitable society for everyone.
Okay, guys, for so long, many white people believed that struggle, poverty, and pain only belonged to Black communities. But now, when they look around, they see Black people building businesses, getting educated, creating culture, and finding new way to win. Because white people, they thought that Black people, they will depend on them forever, or they will continue to do whatever they want. No, that shift makes them nervous because it breaks the old story that only they were supposed to have it all together. That's true, guys. So let's keep watch the clip. I'll be back.
Man, I tell you what, nothing makes racist white people more pissed off than me, a white person, trying to educate about racism and trying to educate about what white privilege is and all these things. And it's so funny because these same people will argue with me till they are blue in the face about how they're not racist and we don't live in a racist institution and Black and brown people have it so easy and racism doesn't exist anymore. But then they will turn around and say the most racist, ignorant, vile shit you've ever heard in your life. The disconnect is amazing. And this is why I make content like this, because it's so important. Because we do live in a racist institution, and we are all raised in racism as white people. This is simply a fact. And the crazy part about it is every one of us knows this. Even the ones who will sit there and fight with me to the death about it and act like it doesn't exist. Y'all know white people are racist. Y'all know about the casual racism, the casual microaggressions that we are raised in, no matter where we live in this United States of America. And this is why I will never stop. I will never stop trying to educate as a white person about racism and how we need to learn. We need to evolve. We need to do better. It's almost as if they feel like admitting to a racist institution or admitting to racism makes them this evil, terrible person. And so they would rather double down than to grow and be a good person. And that's so bad, because all that says to me is that you have a small mind and a cowardly soul. And I wish better for you than that, truly, because everything in your life will get better when you stop being so ignorant.
Your whole comment right here sounds like white supremacy. You're literally just waiting to respond, and instead of listening to a Black American man politely, respectfully, and honestly telling you what the problem is, you are so egotistically up your ass, you don't see that you sound like a white supremacist. Oh, look, we all get along, but not with you guys, because you guys don't respect Black America, yet you fucking bite Black American culture in everything you do all around the world. Make it make sense.
Okay, guys, the fear and the rage we see today is not about crime, not about jobs, and not even about politics. It's about seeing Black people rising, while some white communities are stuck in decline. And instead of asking, what can we do, improve ourselves, they point finger and create hate. Guys, sometimes life needs us just to cooperate, to ask those who are better than us what they did or what they do. Then we can join them, or we can put idea together to improve all of us together. because hate is not a solution, or just accusing other group, it's not a solution. But solution, it's about let's be together, let's put ideas together. So bring your idea, let me bring my idea. So what all our ideas will bring. So guys, let's continue to watch the clip. I'll be back.
White people, if crime statistics really mattered to us, we would be talking about white men every damn day. We as white people love to throw around statistics when it comes to the black community. We love to misconstrue data about poverty rates, crime rates, single parent households. Here's the thing. If you really want to talk about problematic behavior in terms of statistics, we need to talk about white men. Most mass shootings in America, white men. School shootings, white men. Intimate partner violence, typically known as domestic violence, white men. Police brutality and systemic violence, white men. Online harassment and extremism, white men. Domestic terrorism, white men. Serial killers, white men. The demographic making up the vast majority of CEOs, judges, senators, and police chiefs who refuse to hold white men responsible, white men. And yet us white men are rarely talked about as being a problem. Few white people are asking what's wrong with white men, what's wrong with the culture. Few white men are demanding that we be fixed. And why? Because we as white men humanize and individualize white violent offenders. And it's time to flip the script.
White people, why is it that y'all don't like hearing about all the horrific things white people did during slavery and after slavery? Does it make you feel some sort of way? I just want to know.
All right, so in 1860, I want you to guess how many white individuals owned slaves. Like what percentage of white people in the US owned slaves? I'll give you 5 seconds. Across the entire white population in the US in 1860, 1.4% of individuals owned slaves. And I find this interesting because I rarely hear anybody talk about this. In other words, 98.5 to 98.6 out of every 100 white people did not own slaves. So my question to many Black Americans is, why do we continue to act like it was 100% of white people who owned slaves and all white people are responsible for it? Like you'll see many Black Americans that love to talk about this history and get all, and they don't want to tell you this and they don't want to tell you that, but these same people conveniently leave out that the vast majority of white people.
Okay, guys. When Black people win, it shows the world that excuses don't matter. It proves that strength, creativity, and unity can overcome systems meant to hold us back. And that reality shakes those who build their confidence on the idea that they were naturally better. Guys, no one who is naturally better. So we learn everything here in the world. Just that's how we have to cooperate with others. That's how we have to learn from each others. That's why we have to put unity. That's how we have to strengthen each other. So, guys, let's continue to watch the clip. I'll be back with more commentary.
Okay. What is the first word that comes to mind when you hear the name Donald Trump?
Disbelief.
Disbelief?
Disbelief.
Okay. Why is that?
We didn't learn the first time and we voted him in the second time. That is my disbelief. But unfortunately, everybody deserves a vote. And the country's voted. We got to abide by it, but it's still disbelief.
There has been, for lack of a better term, an attack on, minorities in general, but Black people have always kind of had some type of oppression that goes on. So it's kind of nice to be a part of an organization or to visit an organization that just focused on culture, focused on having fun, and focused on just being.
Yeah. Would you say still in 2025, Black people are still oppressed?
I think to a certain extent.
What's the first word that comes to mind when you hear the name Donald Trump?
Oh, I prefer not to answer, but I am one of the festival organizers and we have rented out this space, so I would kindly request that you move and leave the location. If you guys are on the sidewalk, I can't stop you from being on the sidewalk, but we have rented out this space. We have it reserved with the city and we are asking you to leave.
Yeah, so is this a public park?
It's a reserved space at this time.
Yeah, so I'm just going to give you a little bit of information so you can take this and do what you want with it. I'm not going to be leaving because this is a public park, and whether or not you have a permit here does not change this property to private. So I have every right to be here and I will not be leaving. So I'm going to walk away from you now. However you choose to go about what you do next is your business. But just so you know that this is not private property and I have every right to be here, whether or not you have a permit.
What I said stands, and however you feel stands. No, whatever I said stands. It is what it is. However you feel, that's
I do have to ask though, why would I not be welcome here?
So you're good to go.
Why would I not be welcome here?
Thank you.
We have Mr. Event Staff here, but he looks a little different. He asked me to leave, and he said because this is their permitted rented property. So we're still just, you know, chilling, being nice here. We'll see what happens, but I don't know. And I did come prepared. We have a pocket constitution, but if that's not good enough, then I do have the letter that the Attorney General James Uthmeyer wrote to Julie Townsend about what it means to have things hosted on public property and how he put them on notice. And so if they don't believe the First Amendment, maybe they will believe the Attorney General.
What's your name again?
Caitlin.
Caitlin, yes.
Yeah.
Watched a whole lot of you. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
I enjoy your content.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
What's the first word that comes?
Okay, guys, let's be honest. This fear we are seeing today is not new. History shows us that whenever black communities rise, there is always a wave of backlash. That's true because white people, they don't want to see black people develop themselves. They want to see always black people depend on them. We saw it during Reconstruction when newly freed black people started businesses, bought land, and even went into politics. Suddenly, white rage explodes, leading to Jim Crow laws. We saw it during the civil rights movement, when black people stood strong, demanding equality. White rage showed up again, trying to block progress. If you remember the story, guys, you see just the rise of black people was always the struggle, was always difficult. But now white people, they see they becoming success on their own business, education. Now they are seeing they can dump them again. And now in our time, we see the same pattern. Black people are figuring life out, creating wealth, mastering education, leading in sports, music, technology, and politics. The world is watching, and instead of celebrating, some white people feel threatened. They see their own community facing poverty, broken families, drug addiction, and even declining birth rates. So all those are the fact, are the problem what white community are facing. It gives them a big hate instead of coming together and ask them, what did you do to reach on all this success? How can we do the same like you, or how can we do better than you? So that's what we call to learn each other's. But instead of facing these problems, they point at black people with anger, because it's easier to blame than to change. That's true. That's the world we live. People like to blame instead of accepting change. Because once we know our weakness, we can do better. We can change ourselves. We can be humble. We can humbling ourselves to ask others. The truth is, rage comes from insecurity. When you know who you are, when you are confident in your path. You don't fear the success of others. You respect it. That's true. But when your identity is built only on being above someone else, then the moment that person rise, your world shakes. That's what's happening today. Guys, if you see the person who was depending on you and rise, so all the time hate starting, fight starting, conflict starting, because you want that person to depend on you always, all the time. But it was better we learn from what he did or what she did. Black communities are showing the world that despite slavery, segregation, and discrimination, they can still rise, rebuild, and reinvent themselves. That's power, that's strength. And that's why fear and rage are splitting, because the very people who were once told they would never succeed are proving that success is possible. That's what we say never. Anything can happen anytime, because the plan of people is not the plan of God. The plan of what the hatred they have is not the plan about what your mind have. So because everyone day by day is thinking about to improve himself. So white people, they was thinking about hatred, whatever they invest, they do whatever they do about against black people. But now the history changed. And here is deeper. And here is the deeper truth. This is not just a black story. It's an human story. Fear and hate cannot stop progress. Impossible. What we are witnessing is a shift in power, mentally power, culturally power, spiritually power. Black people are learning that they don't need permission to live well, to love themselves, to grow, and to thrive. This is what black people, they've been just saying, these white people, they are doing this and this, but they saw it's not what they need. They're starting what developing themselves in different aspects. So when you see that fear and rage on the news, remember this: it's a reaction to black excellence. It is proof that the work is showing results. And instead of focusing on their fear, we must continue building, supporting one another, and working with confidence. That's true, working with confidence. Just creating confidence by yourself, say, I can't do this. that's that's the idea of the black people. They say no fear anymore. Just we have to continue to build ourselves, our society, our community. Then white people at the end of the day, they'll coming and asking help. Why? How did you do this? Yeah, because at the end of the day, the greatest revenge is not anger, it's success. That is exactly what scares them the most. So guys, fighting whatever hatred does not bring any development, does not bring any change. But unity is big things to do. So thank you guys for watching. Remember to subscribe, put the comment in the comment section. See you for the next video.